Good evening, you're watching London Live News at 6 with Alicia Edwards. Coming up tonight, the race is on as Tory MPs get their say on the next party leader. The vote followed chaos in the Commons during PMQs today, with Sir Keir Starmer taking aim at the pledges of the leadership candidates. We'll have an update on London's weather in the next 10 minutes as that amber warning is extended to Tuesday. Plus, Australian country singer Morgan Evans returns to the capital with new music. And we've seen them on our screens, and now they're taking the London stage. David Harbour and Bill Pullman star in Madhouse. I've been chatting to their co-star Akia Henry about the new production. All of that on the way before 7 o'clock. But first, Conservative MPs have been voting to elect Boris Johnson's successor, with 8 candidates on the ballot paper today. Candidates had to secure at least 30 votes to make it through to the next round. Rishi Sunak, Penny Mordaunt, Liz Truss, Kemi Badenoch, Tom Tugendhat and Suella Braverman hit the threshold and made it through. The leadership race will eventually be down to 2 candidates decided on by the end of next week. After that, they'll have the summer to win the support of members of the Tory party before the final result on the 5th of September. Well, it comes as Prime Minister's questions got off to an incredibly angry and chaotic start today. Scottish MPs from the Alba Party, Neil Hanvey and Kenny MacAskill, were on their feet heckling the PM before he could begin. They were ordered to leave the chamber in rare scenes after aiming a protest at Boris Johnson, which delayed the start of proceedings. It's reported they were calling for a Scottish referendum, though others were suggesting they were saying we need a referendum in the Prime Minister.
Just sit down. Sit! Shut up a minute. What's this for? Give me the word in. Order! Order! I say to the honourable gentleman, give me the seat. I will not tolerate such behaviour. If you want to go out now, but if you stand again, I will order you out. Make your mind up. Either shut up and get out. Neil Hanvey, I am now naming you and Kenny MacAskill to leave this chamber. Sergeant, deal with them. Deal with them. Deal with them. Just sit down.
There we are. Well, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer picked a number of lines of attack aiming at the pledges of the leadership candidates.
The candidates to replace him have promised £330 billion in giveaways. That's roughly double the annual budget for the NHS. Sadly, they haven't found time to explain how they're paying for it, even though one of them's the Chancellor and another one was Chancellor until a week ago. They all backed 15 tax rises. Now they're acting as if they've just arrived from the moon, saying it should never have happened. Doesn't he agree that rather than desperately rewriting history, they should at least explain exactly where they're getting all this cash from?
Prime Minister.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, he's completely wrong. I've been listening very carefully, and all the commitments that I'm listening to are very clear. We will continue. Whoever is elected will continue to put more police out on the street, exactly as we promised. Already at 13,576, we're going to go up to 20,000. Whoever takes over will build. They always complain about this, but we will build the 40 new hospitals, Mr. Speaker.
He also pushed the PM to condemn those who pay less tax because of their non-dom status, a dig at the scandal involving former Chancellor Rishi Sunak.
He's been saying all week that he wants revenge on those that have wronged him. Here's an idea, Prime Minister. If he really wants to hit them where it hurts, he should tighten the rules on tax avoidance. But at the very least, does he agree that anyone running to be Prime Minister should declare where they and their families have been domiciled for tax purposes and whether they've ever been a beneficiary of an offshore tax scheme?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, to the best of my knowledge, everybody in this Parliament, everybody in this House pays their full whack of tax in this country, and I think that people should, members across the House should cease this constant vilification of each other. I think people pay their fair share of taxes, and quite right.
Last week, he resigned, accusing the Prime Minister of not conducting government properly, competently or seriously. He suggested the Prime Minister is not prepared to work hard or take difficult decisions, and implied that the Prime Minister cannot tell the public the truth. Yesterday, he claimed his big plan is to rebuild the economy. Now, even the Prime Minister must be impressed by that Johnsonian brass-neckery. Can the Prime Minister think of any jobs his former Chancellor may have had that means he bears some responsibility for an economy that he now claims is broken?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think everybody who's played a part in the last 3 years has done a remarkable job in helping this country through very difficult times. I just want to say to him, really, Mr. Speaker, the next leader of my party may be elected by acclamation, so it's possible this will be our last confrontation over this. It's possible. So I want to thank him. I want to thank him for the style in which he's conducted himself. I think it'd be fair to say he's been considerably less lethal than many other members of this House.
There we are, some other stories from the capital today. The DJ, Tim Westwood, is facing allegations from a woman who says he first had sex with her when she was 14 years old. The alleged victim came forward after an investigation by BBC News and The Guardian into claims of misconduct and abuse dating from 1990 to 2020. Westwood has previously strongly denied other allegations of sexual misconduct. Transport for London's emergency funding deal with the government has been extended by 2 weeks. The current financial deal had been due to run out today, but will now go on. This will allow more time for officials on both sides to negotiate a deal for the remainder of the current financial year and continue work on a long-term capital funding plan. Sadiq Khan has been urged to consider delaying the expansion of the ultra-low emission zone across Greater London. The Mayor wants to expand ULEZ for a second time, taking it from the north and south circular roads across all 33 boroughs in August next year. Concerns have been raised over the lack of financial help for low-income Londoners wanting to replace or scrap cars and vans that would be liable. Workers at rail operators and Network Rail have announced plans to strike on the 27th of July in the dispute over pay, jobs and conditions. The RMT announced the action after workers voted yesterday. Well, it comes as tram users have been facing further disruption today as workers have walked out in a row over pay. Strike action is ongoing on the tram network for the remainder of the evening and all day tomorrow. TfL have been warning that buses in Croydon, Wimbledon, Beckenham and Addington will be busier than usual as a result. Holidaymakers at Gatwick are more likely to have flights cancelled this year than any other major UK airport. More than 3% of planned departures didn't take place, according to new data obtained by Sky News from OAG. June was Gatwick's worst month, with 1 in every 14 flights cancelled. It comes as Heathrow yesterday ordered airlines to stop selling tickets for summer flights as it imposed a cap on passenger numbers to 100,000 a day until September. Citizens UK community leaders, including care workers, gathered today outside major care providers, Bupa and Barchester Healthcare headquarters in the capital, calling for them to commit to a real living wage for care workers amidst the cost of living crisis. One healthcare worker says she's currently being paid under the living wage in London and has taken unpaid leave to demonstrate.
I have been doing that job since May last year, so it's more than 1 year. And that means that it's more than 1 year that I don't hear the London living wage. And that's what basically we are calling for today. the main thing that we are calling for today. There are many other things that I would add we need to within this specific sector, and for people like me, that it's not an underskilled job. It's a really high-skilled job. We work with the most vulnerable people. That's not easy. That requires training, apart from dedication, simply to be, like a good person, empathetic, but it's not just like personal qualities. It requires study, knowledge, training. The fact is that I cannot afford to pay rent. I cannot afford to pay my bills. In my specific case, if it wouldn't be for my husband, I couldn't live. Probably today, now, I couldn't even afford a room. So probably that would mean for me to come back where I'm from, or I don't know.
There we are. Well, Barchester Healthcare says they take the well-being of employees very seriously and offer the best remuneration package in the care sector, adding they already pay the UK living wage of £9.90 to the majority of staff and to all staff over 23. Bupa are yet to comment. The Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall have paid a visit to the Tabernacle in West London for a preview of performances for this year's Notting Hill Carnival. This August will be the first time it's been held since 2019 due to the pandemic. The Prince of Wales got in the mood for the carnival by playing the steel pan and listening to a booming sound system. There we go, having a great time in West London today. Right, now time for a quick check on the weather. Those warnings in place for the weekend, but this evening dropping down to 17 degrees at its lowest. We'll be waking up to sunshine again tomorrow, 20 degrees by 9 a.m. Later in the day, top temperatures of 27 degrees. It's looking much the same on Friday, highs of 27 again and sunny with little cloud cover. If we look ahead to Saturday, a degree cooler, but making way for Sunday and Monday when we have that amber warning of extreme heat, which has now been extended to Tuesday. Highs of 29 Sunday, 35 on Monday, and the potential for it to be even warmer again on Tuesday. Highs of 37 degrees could be on the way. Right, it's time for a break now, but on the way, more on travel. The organisation encouraging us to use the bus in a bid to hit net zero emission goals.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Hello there, welcome back. Some other stories for the capital today. The UK economy rebounded in May after shrinking in April and March, according to official figures from the Office for National Statistics. The economy grew by 0.5% during the month, higher than the flat growth most analysts expected. Growth in the construction industry and a large rise in GP appointments helped to boost the economy, but businesses say that higher running costs led them to put up prices for customers. Children are at risk from vaping, and more should be done to protect them from illegal and unregulated products containing high levels of nicotine, doctors are warning. Trading standards in England and Wales say the market is being flooded by unsafe disposable vapes aimed at children. The colourful, sweet-flavoured devices are growing in popularity among teens, and teachers say they're becoming a problem in secondary schools. And if you look into the sky this evening, you may have a chance of spotting the biggest and brightest moon of the year. The full buck moon, which will be classed as a supermoon, will rise here in the southeast at 9:47 p.m. So do make sure you're looking at the sky. Now, with one fully loaded bus being equivalent to taking 75 cars off the road, stats show half of Brits have considered taking the bus more often in order to be greener. The Confederation of Passenger Transport has today released a report which shows how switching a journey from a car to a bus could help the UK reach net zero emission goals. Well, Alison Edwards is from the CPT and told me what we can all be doing to be better.
There's already lots of people travelling by public transport, which is really, really great. But we've got a report out today that shows that nationally, if we're going to meet our ambitions to be net zero carbon by 2050, we really do need to work across the country to shift even more of those journeys that we're currently making by car to the bus and the coach. But what also comes out in the report today is that it only needs each of us to make a very small change in the way we travel that can make a really, really big difference. So, for example, if we were all to just switch by 2050 2 car journeys a month to bus or coach, that could save us nearly 20 million tonnes of carbon emissions going into the atmosphere, which to kind of put that into context, is more than the total emissions of the North East in 2019. So that's a really big difference that we can make nationally, and say it's really good that already in London, lots of people are making really good transport choices. And it's just about making, if we can even just change just one more journey, that can make a really big difference.
Obviously, a lot of us here rely on public transport, including, rail, the tube. Where does it stand when it comes to making those decisions between the bus or the tube? What's the better choice?
Well, to be fair, it's good to make. It's good to be travelling by public transport, whatever form of public transport you're travelling on. And I think what we try to do in the kind of as bus and coach operators is try to make sure that we're working with operators of different public transport services across the country and the local authorities to make sure that the links are there, because actually what we need to think about are people's journeys kind of holistically. So there may be situations where actually we need to make sure that bus journeys match up with the train journeys that people want to take and such like, and there'll be journeys that where the tube is maybe not quite so convenient, and so and that's where the bus can step in and vice versa. So actually it's about kind of looking at the holistic picture, and all forms of public transport are really kind of a good positive choice to make.
Half of Brits considering taking the bus. Is that a good figure, or should it be a lot more than that by now? Or is that actually, have we come a long way with that stat?
So what that shows is that of those people that are kind of making car journeys at the moment and taking and making the decision to take a car on a particular trip, the fact that they're actually thinking, well, do you know what? Maybe maybe it would be good here if I could take a public transport alternative. And so I think that's really positive. And actually, what we need to do is to make sure that they've got the options open to them and that they feel that they can make that choice. From the perspective of the bus, we know that what sometimes stops people from choosing the bus over their car is a worry about slower journey times, maybe unreliable journey times. And the cause of that is congestion. So we need to kind of be putting measures in place which keep the buses out of that congestion, to make sure that people can rely on those journeys being quick and being, and being on time. And that's where, it's really important, like local authorities and operators are working together across the country on plans to try and make that happen. And, we really look forward to seeing that take shape over the next few months, and hopefully being spread across a wider part of the country in months to come, to really encourage people to make that shift.
We've been reporting today about the debate over the expansion of the ultra-low emission zone here in London. In your opinion, what you see, is there a benefit to that? Should we be looking at that, or is actually the benefits of the ultra-low emission zone not making the impact that maybe you would be concerned about?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. So, there's obviously, there are benefits to be had from ensuring that only kind of lower emission vehicles are travelling around the city. And actually, buses in London are really, really ahead of the game in moving to zero emission, which is great. Actually, it needs to be hand in hand, though, with also getting people out of their cars and onto those zero emission vehicles, zero emission buses, because that can, there are a whole host of benefits that could be brought about through that change, which is more than just switching all our cars to electric. Health benefits, congestion benefits, benefits to the economy by making sure that we can all get to where we want to go quicker. So I think it's about a kind of holistic package of all of these things.
There we are, Alison Edwards there. Now, according to new stats, more than 3 in 5 of this year's students graduating in the capital take into account how they think other people will react to their career decision. The research, which has been taken out by Get Into Teaching, found the 82% of students and graduates in the capital want their career to combine their passion and the opportunity to make an impact. Well, Stephen Hemming is a teacher at a primary school in Stockwell and told me how his career began.
For me personally, I've always known I wanted to be a teacher. I think anyone you ask in my family will tell you that as well. My family originate from Ghana, and my granddad, who lived in Ghana, was a head teacher. So that gave me the inspiration to also want to get into teaching. Also throughout primary and secondary school, I had some really great teachers, and they inspired me to want to go down the route of teaching as well. Particularly in primary school, because I had such a great time at primary school in particular, I felt that my personality and my drive and my passion for sharing my knowledge across a wide range of subjects would really suit working in a primary school. So that's how it worked for me.
You obviously went into teaching at a young age, but lots of people, there is that option of having a completely different career first and then getting into teaching. What do you think the benefits are of either or, of going straight from school or, doing another career first?
So in my case, once again, because I knew I wanted to be a teacher, I decided to go straight from school. So I did an undergraduate degree in history and English. And then I did the year's PGCE, the postgraduate certificate, which allows you to get your qualified teacher status, your QTS. And then I became a teacher straight through that way. And I think if you have the drive and the passion and you want to do it straight away, that's great, because it allows you to share your enthusiasm and your passion with students right from the beginning. Also, at the same time, if you have already completed a degree, or you're thinking about teaching after you've been in a different career, I think that also brings a range of life experience that other people might not necessarily have. It brings a passion for a certain subject or area that you'll be able to share with students as well. And it also allows to create a really varied and diverse workforce working in a school, which can only benefit the school community as a whole. So I think both have really positive parts to play. Both routes are really positive and can bring something unique to the role.
Yeah, that range can only be a good thing. These new stats show that more than 3 in 5 of this year's students graduating here in London take into account how they think other people will react to their career decision. Is that something you thought about? And do you think that, does social media have a part to play in this?
The thoughts and opinions of others on my career didn't really play too much of a big role in my decision in choosing to become a teacher. And I think everyone's going to have an opinion on not just your career, on whatever you do, both good and bad. So you really have to think about what it is that you want to do to make you happy. Social media, everyone knows that as time has gone on, it's got a really, really big role to play in the way it influences and shapes young people in particular's decisions. What path they choose to go down and what things they choose to do. I'd really encourage anyone that, and I say this to people that I meet and people that are interested in teaching and inquire as well, knowing that I'm a teacher. If you have the slightest curiosity, if you have the slightest interest in wanting to become a teacher, the first thing to do, the first place to go would be to have a look at the Get Into Teaching website, because on there you'll be able to find lots and lots of really practical and helpful advice about routes that you can take into teaching, different financial methods to help you, support you as you train to become a teacher. It talks about the different paths and aspects that you can go down as a teacher as well, because teaching is so varied, and becoming a teacher can open so many doors that you might not necessarily thought of before as well.
There we go, teacher Stephen Hemming there. Right, you're watching London Live News at 6 with Alicia Edwards. A reminder of our top story coming up after the break, plus country singer Morgan Evans on his return to the capital.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Hello there, welcome back. A reminder of some of the main stories in the capital today. The DJ, Tim Westwood, is facing allegations from a woman who says he had sex with her when she was 14 years old. The alleged victim came forward after an investigation by BBC News and The Guardian into claims of misconduct and abuse dating from 1990 to 2020. Westwood has previously strongly denied other allegations of sexual misconduct. Transport for London's emergency funding deal with the government has been extended by 2 weeks. The current financial deal had been due to run out today, but will now go on. This will allow more time for officials on both sides to negotiate a deal for the remainder of the current financial year and continue work on a long-term capital funding plan. Sadiq Khan has been urged to consider delaying the expansion of the ultra-low emission zone across Greater London. The Mayor wants to expand ULEZ for a second time, taking it from the north and south circular roads across all 33 boroughs in August next year. Concerns have been raised over the lack of financial help for low-income Londoners wanting to replace or scrap cars and vans that would be liable. Workers at rail operators and Network Rail have announced plans to strike on the 27th of July in the dispute over pay, jobs and conditions. The RMT announced the action after workers voted yesterday. Well, it comes as tram users have been facing further disruption today as workers have walked out in a row over pay. Strike action is ongoing on the tram network for the remainder of the evening and all day tomorrow. TfL have been warning that buses in Croydon, Wimbledon, Beckenham and Addington will be busier than usual as a result. Holidaymakers at Gatwick are more likely to have flights cancelled this year than any other major UK airport. More than 3% of planned departures didn't take place, according to new data obtained by Sky News from OAG. June was Gatwick's worst month, with 1 in every 14 flights cancelled. It comes as Heathrow yesterday ordered airlines to stop selling tickets for summer flights, as it imposed a cap on passenger numbers to 100,000 a day until September.
You know, I always say there's a trick to sound good on the steel pan. If you chant, it sounds better. And if you dance, you're in rhythm.
The Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall have paid a visit to the Tabernacle in West London for a preview of performances for this year's Notting Hill Carnival. This August will be the first time it's been held since 2019 due to the pandemic. The Prince of Wales got in the mood for the carnival by playing the steel pan and listening to a booming sound system. There we go, having a great time in West London today. Now, Australian country singer Morgan Evans is returning to the capital to headline at the Lafayette as part of his world tour tomorrow. It's his first time back in the UK since 2019 and he's set to perform all the fan favourites as well as songs off his new EP, The Country and the Coast. Well, Maddie spoke to Morgan.
I don't know exactly how I got into singing and songwriting. I remember like at a really young age, I think my mum would have been really musical had she had the opportunities as a kid. And so with my brother and sister and I, she was always very, not at all pushy, but very much like, hey, would you like to learn an instrument? Would you like to do this? And so I played music from a really young age. I started playing piano when I was 5 and I played the baritone horn in the school band. And then I think I was probably 10 or 11 when I remember seeing a guy playing electric guitar somewhere. And I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I started to teach myself on an old guitar that we borrowed. And I think I wrote my first song with the first 4 chords that I learned. I didn't even think about it. I was just like, I want to play a song. I better write one. And just definitely wasn't a good song, but it was a song. And yeah, my best mate from school played the drums, and then we made my brother take up the bass guitar. And so by the time I was sort of 13 and a half, we were rocking, and been doing it ever since. It's been a kind of a wild year, actually. We've been doing a lot of one-off stuff, just weekends here and there. So we've been doing a lot of flying. But as of this week, it starts to really get crazy, and we're making up for lost time this year. All the places we couldn't travel to the last couple of years, we are. And we're coming over your way with Brad Paisley. We're coming to London to do our own show, of course, and we're going to some countries I've never even been to before, like Sweden and Norway, and we're going to Denmark as well, and then we're doing Ireland and Scotland as well, and then we're going to come back here and we're going to do America by ourselves, and then we're going to go back to Australia and New Zealand and do that as well. So we're going to be exhausted by the end of the year, but we'll have big smiles on our faces for sure. I just grew up listening to so much country music. My parents are from a country town in Australia called Armidale. I was about 4, and my parents came to America because my uncle was getting married here, and they bought some CDs at the airport on the way home, and it was like Garth Brooks, The Hits, a greatest hits of Glenn Campbell. There's an Eagles one in there, and the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, the best of that they put out in the 70s. And so those records were really a big part of my childhood. More and more, the more we've played, and we just had our last rehearsal yesterday for this UK and European run of dates, and I want it to be an escape, and I want people to leave feeling really hopeful. I think they're the two things that I've looked for in music the last couple of years, and that's the kind of feeling that I want to share on stage. We're going to be having a great time, that's for sure. And so hopefully we can bring people at the show along for the ride.
Come on, let's drive.
There we go, country singer Morgan Evans there, and he's going to be at Lafayette tomorrow evening. Right, it's time for a quick break now, but coming up, stars of Netflix hits The Sinner and Stranger Things have arrived on the London stage. More on the way in the next 10 minutes.
From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live.
Hello there, welcome back. You're watching London Live News at 6. Now, Stranger Things star David Harbour and Bill Pullman from The Sinner are both starring in a brand new play which has opened its doors in the West End. Madhouse is set in rural Pennsylvania and follows three siblings determined to work out how much money their father is leaving them. Akia Henry plays Lillian and told me more, but first let's hear a little more from David and Bill. Just a warning, there are some flashing images on the way.
There's something exhilarating about hearing things said between loved ones that is so outrageous you can't forget it.
In the theater, you really get to come and address the big questions of life. I want you to feel something. I want you to be able to be private and alone in that theater and laugh and cry and just cathartically respond to this experience.
Anything you can predict when you're going into it, what the tone is going to be, and you're swept from being, this is outrageous, and then this is really unfortunate, and then this is really compassionate. You're tumbled around with those things, and then boom.
Really digging into these big ideas of death and madness and life and joy.
I play Lillian, who's she's a hospice nurse, and she basically comes in to care and support the Daniel, who is the patriarch of the family, as he's going through that really difficult, tough transition. But she also becomes a little bit embroiled in the family dynamics as well.
You have a very different accent in the play. How did you find developing that?
Yeah, I mean, I always love accents. It's always great to like explore what an accent will do to you as a character. Obviously I live in Brixton, so there is a really big Caribbean community here in Brixton. And Lillian is from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which is not a very like apparent accent that you hear commonly, I feel like, in and around the UK. But it was really great to just connect with some Vincentians, and also Hazel Holder, who was our amazing dialect coach. So she gave me a lot of support as well. But I think it was really necessary for my character to feel and sound different.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, Bill Pullman undergoes quite a physical transformation for his role. How have you found developing your character around him, and in the rehearsal process, what was that like, seeing him kind of transforming into this very different character?
Oh my gosh. Well, first and foremost, always fangirling, right? Because Bill Pullman is like an icon. But he's also really lovely and brilliant. And we just from the offset just had a really great rapport. So it's actually been really lovely exploring the relationship between Lillian and Daniel, who is Bill Pullman, the character that Bill Pullman plays. It's been really lovely kind of exploring that, and then afterwards finding the joy and the light in it as well. And so what's been really interesting is like Bill is the most loveliest man you could ever possibly meet. And so in rehearsal, it was like, oh my gosh, this character is so horrible sometimes. And so navigating the difference between, you know, beautiful Bill and then also the character Daniel. But I think we did a really good job, and we always find a way to laugh through the experience, which always helps.
Also in the cast, David Harbour, he barely comes off stage throughout the entire show. Such an undertaking for him as well.
Yeah, he's an incredible powerhouse, and also just another brilliant, beautiful talent to be around. And definitely like keeps you on your toes. Like his stamina is incredible. But once again, it was just really lovely, you know, when you're in a rehearsal room with such incredible, gifted actors, it makes the job very, very easy, you know, and you're constantly learning from each other as well. And David is definitely one of those actors. He's just so beautifully talented that you spend most of your time just being at real ease throughout the process with him. So yeah, he's wonderful.
With Stranger Things coming out just as you've also gone onto stage, I imagine stage door has been rather busy.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, the Stranger Things fans are, I mean, to be honest, they are really incredible. The loyalty and the support that they have given, not only to David, but to all of us as well, has just been, it's been actually really lovely to watch and to see and to hear. As I'm always take too long to get changed at the end of a show. So I'm usually always the last one out. And it's just really lovely as I'm getting changed to just hear all of the cheers as everybody's walking out the stage door. You know, it's incredible, but they're very, very supportive and loyal, which is wonderful to see.
In your career so far, you've done lots of roles, one being Lady Macduff, Shakespearean acting. This show, obviously, brand new writing, something people aren't familiar with already. How have you found bringing a new show to audiences where people have no idea what to expect?
There's always something really exciting about bringing new writing and new plays to an audience, because you never know how they're going to respond. And that's something that's really, it makes you feel kind of like that you have to really be in the moment. And I mean, like, you know, when we do reinterpretations of Shakespeare, it's kind of similar in a way, but the audiences know the rough outline of the story. And what's been really lovely with this play, and what I think Teresa Rebecca, our playwright, does so incredibly well, is she takes the audience on this big emotional journey, you know, where you're laughing, you're crying, you know, you're in shock, and the audience really go with it. And that's what's really lovely, is that every night is like a very different response. So it's very, very alive.
There we are, Akia Henry there, and Madhouse is on at the Ambassadors Theatre until the 4th of September. Now, an award-winning musician is travelling to the UK to show her thanks to the country's largest contemporary choir. Now they're back performing. Caroline Redman-Lusher is the founder of Rock Choir, giving people who aren't musically trained a voice and a chance to grow their confidence. The pandemic has meant that 30,000 members weren't able to meet, but now they're back, and Caroline is this week meeting the London strands of the choir. Well, Henry has been hearing more.
Well, with Rock Choir, we have 400 rehearsals taking place across the country. We're in our 17th year of Rock Choir now in the UK. So it's important that as the founder and creative director that I get out as much as possible and visit the choirs, visit our Rockies, we call them our Rockies. But especially with the pandemic and everything we've had to go through with Rock Choir, I wanted to personally thank all the members. I visited about 30 big things since the autumn, and of course London, visiting our Rockies in London when they've worked so hard to help us survive as an organisation. I just wanted to go in person and sing with them, listen to what they've learned through lockdown, and talk to them about the company and just thank them in a really kind of transparent way, talk to them about where we are with Rock Choir and see if they're okay, which is the nicest thing, to get to chat to them.
Yeah, no, that certainly is nice, and to actually personally see everyone after, you know, such a horrible 2 years. But let's go back to why you started Rock Choir in the first place. Why did you decide to set it up?
You know, at the time, I'd actually been a professional performer, singer in London, and then I'd moved into teaching, and I was teaching A-level students. And it was A-level performing arts, and many of them would arrive at the Sixth Form College, this is in Farnborough in Hampshire, with knowledge of drama and dance, but no knowledge of music, but they had to pass their music course. So I created a group kind of session in their lunchtime on Wednesdays around a piano in the theatre foyer of the college, and taught them the songs that I used to teach in London. I was only in my mid-20s at the time, so in terms of 16 to 18-year-olds, we liked a lot of the same music. So I would break down these songs and teach them by rote and create a choir with them where they didn't have to read music, and I built their confidence. So that concept was really interesting because at the time, there weren't any contemporary choirs around. There wasn't that kind of inclusive, accessible journey for the public to join a choir. And I was almost, without realizing it, breaking down barriers and seeing the impact that music was making on these students. And their confidence grew enormously and their grades started to go up. So their well-being was dramatically being improved by this Wednesday lunchtime choir and all the kind of events that I was organizing for them. So I transferred that concept into my local community in Farnham near Guildford in Surrey, put a poster on the wall in a coffee shop and said, no auditions, which was what was very common with choirs, community choirs and classical choirs at the time. No auditions and no need to read music because I would teach.
It seems to be more than just a choir. It's a chance for people to meet up, isn't it? Which is very important after the last couple of years that we've had.
It's been such a dramatic and challenging time for everyone, and we're still seeing the impact of the pandemic, anxiety levels, stress, our mental health. We work really closely with the Mental Health Foundation throughout the pandemic, raising money for them. In fact, we raised about £150,000 for them, and their advice to us through that period of time was really important in terms of just taking care of one another, being kind. They had a campaign during pandemic in May, I think it was May 2020, about kindness, about just helping one another through, because you look at someone and they're smiling back, but you don't know what's going on. And that ethos and culture is right through Rock Choir in terms of the communities that we bring together, our Rockies. You know, they're making lifelong friends. And some of them, you know, you hear stories that they don't really leave the house each week. They haven't got anywhere to go. They haven't got any friends to meet up with. And even just meeting someone for a coffee and having a chat just massively impacts our well-being, let alone bringing them together in a room and getting them to sing. So it's all about looking after people.
There we go, Caroline there with more from the Rock Choir. Right, before we leave you, there's time for just another quick check on the weather. Those warnings in place for the weekend, but this evening dropping down to 17 degrees at its lowest. We'll be waking up to sunshine again tomorrow, 20 degrees by 9 a.m. Later in the day, top temperatures of 27. It's looking much the same on Friday, more sunshine and highs of 27 degrees with little cloud cover. Looking ahead to the weekend on Saturday, it's a degree cooler, but making way for Sunday and Monday when we have that amber warning of extreme heat. Highs of 29 on Sunday and 35 on Monday. Can you believe it? Right, that's all from us for this evening. For updates throughout the day, do head over to our social channels. You can find us in all the usual places at London Live. But for now, from all of us here, have a lovely evening and we'll see you tomorrow at 6.